Friesland is a Mennonite colony in Paraguay. And when I say Mennonite colony, in a sense it's a place where Mennonite refugees early in the 20th century, after World War II, went to Paraguay. They were escaping, fleeing from the Soviet Union from the aftermath of World War II, and they settled in colonies. So these are Germanic people living in Paraguay, and they first settled there. They lived together in these colonies, and they're in different places in Paraguay. So they're farmers. They started in the beginning, when they first got there, had some very, very tough years. Many of them died, but over time, they were able to survive and to even flourish. And in part, some of them moving to different parts of the country, which is the case for this Friesland group. So they are now quite successful agriculturally. So the Friesland colony had about 220 families in it. And in the 1990s, they were having increasing problems with neighbors stealing their cattle. And sometimes this was happening, organized groups were stealing the cattle. So what do you do? What do you do? Well, stealing the cattle, call the police. In this case, they called the army and the police, and they came in, and you know what happened? Got worse. There was more cattle being stolen. Now, perhaps the army was doing some of the stealing themselves. I'm not sure. But for whatever reason, it got worse. So what happened? This is not the solution. Now, so what are you going to do? Then there's an important point here, and this is where this differs from the cattle stealing story I told you earlier in Honduras. Remember I told that place, these people, 10, 12 cattle being stolen at a time, taken away in trucks. Oftentimes, the stolen cattle would be killed and butchered right in the field. So they're still stealing the cattle, but what are they stealing? They're stealing the meat from the cattle. So what does that imply? What's that let you know? These people are not stealing the cattle to increase their herds, to increase their wealth of cattle. The people stealing the cattle are hungry. But still, for the farmers, their cattle is being stolen. So what are they going to do? So the group of Mennonites living in this colony get together, they reflect, they talk. Some of them say, let's leave. Let's try to get into Canada, go visit our cousins. Let's leave, give up. This isn't going to work. How can we do this? We're losing our cattle. But some of the farmers advocated for, and eventually the whole group decided for another approach. They imagined an alternative. So their first instinct was, the normal thing, call the police. That didn't work. They imagined an alternative solution. So in 2000, they started a community development program for the very poor peasant farmers, campesino, neighbors of theirs that were living around them. The motto of the community development program was Vida digna para mi vecino. Dignified life, or a life of dignity for my neighbor. So what did they do? They invested a significant amount of money of this. So this is not just that they're going to, go out and hand out some food or something or teach a little bit of literacy, but they put in a significant amount of money, and they worked at this broadly and diversely. So they worked at instructing in better agricultural methods. So thinking, hey, we're prospering here. We're living on the same land. So our neighbors, these people of Paraguayan descent, they could be prospering too. So they taught them better agricultural methods. But then they thought, it's not just raising more, but you need to sell it and market it, and you need to get it to market. So they put in money to help build better roads and give instruction as well on how to market, accounting, things like that. So they also didn't even just focus only on the agricultural, but while they're doing this in a holistic way, they worked as well in education and health. So what was the result? There has been a 600% increase in production in these neighboring regions. 600%. And a 68% increase in income for the 750 families in the communities surrounding this Mennonite colony. So these 220 families came together, invested in 750 families and communities living around them, and there was this huge increase in income through huge increase in production. And what do you think has happened with cattle? What do you think has happened with the stolen cattle? It went down to none. At the time of the article that I read about this was written, there had not been any stolen cattle in the previous 2 years from the Friesland colony. They were not passive. They were active. They imagined an alternative to violent force and proactively sought a solution, not just containment of the problem. If you'd like to read more about this, send me an email. Let me say that again. If you read Spanish and would like to read more about this, send me an email and I can send you a copy of the newspaper articles about this. I invite you now to take a moment and reflect on this story. What stood out to you? How does it relate to the two sides of the table from the lecture? What are connections to your world?